Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Massive second quarter collapse for the Lakers. They lose a costly one at home. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one is always going to be free and never behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 23,000 subscribers to that channel are wondering just what went wrong for the Lakers in the second quarter against the Kings on Wednesday. They are also wondering, Andy, if LeBron James, who limped off the floor before this one was over, and talked about ankle pain, been fighting it all year, is going to be available going forward. So lots to get into for today's show. Do want to let people know that today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. I was joked, Andy, that this was the sort of living embodiment basketball-wise of the how it started, how it's going meme for the Lakers. This one, I mean, they were up 19 in the first quarter. And by the time halftime rolled around, they were down 15. The swing in this game, it was sort of the bizarro version of the Oklahoma City game where they got off to a bad start and dominated after that. They were boat raced in this game once they went up 19, and it was a costly loss.
Things got off to, that second quarter was absolutely disastrous. The Lakers were outscored 44-20, and a lot of guys and Darvin Ham all talked about that second quarter as where the game really fell apart. And I'm not going to argue in the sense of how disastrous it was, but
I mean, minus 24 for a quarter is pretty bad.
But I actually think it started to fall apart in the first quarter. Mm-hmm. Sacramento ended that game on a 10-0 run in the last minute 52. And you could see that momentum starting to build. It happened around the time Anthony Davis picked up his second foul. He spent this game in semi-foul trouble. I mean, he finished with 4 fouls, so it's not like he was sitting there.
He finished with the fourth, came at a bad time. His second foul, the one that forced him out of the game, was at the 127 mark. And that, it was a shooting foul. So the Lakers were up 18 when AD commits the foul. De'Aaron Fox makes both free throws, and it's a 16-point lead with 127 left in the quarter. By the time the quarter was over, Sacramento was down by 9. So just in the minute in that 90 seconds that Anthony Davis was gone, the lead, which had gotten as large as 19, was down to 9.
I believe, by the way, all 4 of Anthony Davis's fouls were shooting fouls. And LeBron talked after the game. For what it's worth, LeBron said he'd be okay, and it didn't sound like LeBron was concerned about missing time. Darvin said he's going to be evaluated.
It's the same injury he's been dealing with all year.
Yeah, same ankle. LeBron clarified it. There was a weird moment at the top of the fourth quarter where that is where LeBron always starts every game. Like LeBron, his rotations are like clockwork, and he actually was sitting at the top of the fourth, and AD was out there with a kind of a mismatched group anyway. But it was unusual that LeBron wasn't there. But reading between the lines from LeBron talking after the game, I got the impression LeBron actually wanted to sit. Like he was like, I need to. My ankle's starting to bother me. He had just played, if not the entire third, close to the entire third. But this was, it felt to me very much like the Lakers got up huge in this game to start. They were up 19 in the first quarter, and I thought very openly relaxed. And they gave Sacramento an opportunity to run with this game, and they did. And whether you're talking about Malik Monk, whether you're talking about De'Aaron Fox, whether you're talking about Domantas Sabonis, who thoroughly outplayed Anthony Davis for like the billionth time over the last couple seasons, or even guys like Davion Mitchell, Harrison Barnes, like they had a lot of guys who showed up to play in this game that I have no other impression other than meant more to them than it meant to the Lakers. It's hard to walk away with any other conclusion to me.
I mean, they said the right stuff after the game, in terms of, I see you shaking your head and I don't disagree with you. And
that's the easy thing to do.
Right. Exactly. And it did seem to be sort of a disconnect between Anthony Davis and the game plan in terms of, he kind of alluded to the coverages they were in and the freedom that it gave Fox and some other people to Malik Monk, 26 or 23, either way, it doesn't matter, too many, to get going and all of that. But it's like, what are you doing during the game? And I get it, Anthony Davis goes out, your defense is going to suffer, but that stretch, like for them to give up that lead as quickly as they did, it just, whether it's letting your foot off the gas a little bit, whether it's the deficiencies that naturally come through when Davis doesn't play, because they managed in that second quarter to kind of keep it in that 10 to 12 point range, 10, 11, 12 for the first 3 or so minutes. Then Sacramento goes on a run. They get it down to 6. Darvin calls timeout. The run continues coming out of the timeout. Darvin calls another one, when Sacramento takes a lead. Like, they just could not get any stops. And I understand, Anthony Davis's primacy in this defense, and what he does. Like, you've got to be able to at least slow a team down when he's not in the game. If you can't function defensively without Davis in the game, like, and it's just a complete layup line and a parade back, through, like they're not going anywhere. Like, Davis comes back in the game at 8:20 of the second quarter, and by then, Monk is rolling, and the Kings are just generally rolling, and the lead was gone by then. So it's they, like you said, they are you saying the right stuff? Great. Are you actually doing anything about it on the floor?
Here's my take on this, though. In all honesty, there was a sequence late in this game where the Lakers were attempting to make like a final, if totally improbable, push to, try to wipe out, I don't know, maybe a 10 or 12 point deficit, like in the last couple minutes. Again, improbable, but they were getting a little bit of semi momentum or whatever. And there was a sequence where Domantas Sabonis beat Anthony Davis for 2 offensive rebounds that eventually led to a De'Aaron Fox basket. And that, to me, felt like a microcosm of this entire game. Domantas Sabonis thoroughly outplaying and out-physicaling, in particular, AD, and De'Aaron Fox destroying the Lakers. And I'm not going to dispute like the intricacies of a game plan defensively with Anthony Davis, because he clearly knows more about that than me.
And he was a little vague in what he was getting at, but there was clearly some
displeasure. He may have a laundry list of problems with the game plan, and that is something that he and Darvin should sit down after this game and hash out, because Anthony Davis knows a lot about NBA defense, and if there are things that he thinks were wrong with the game plan, by all means bring them up to Darvin. But AD did not play well enough in this game, regardless of what the game plan was, to infer the problems with the schemes or whatever.
Hold that thought, because after the break, we set up like the matchup that mattered in this game was going to be Davis versus Sabonis.
Yep.
And it was in the way that did not help the Lakers. So we'll talk about it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver who likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue, perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive, Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call in for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment center. That's a big screen. The 2024 Rogue, perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. And Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Pathfinder. It has room up to 8, expansive cargo capacity, advanced 4x4 capability, 284 horsepower, up to 6,000 pounds towing. So take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next adventure. Shop nissanusa.com.
All right. So, Andy, we talked about how Davis versus Sabonis was going to be the big matchup here. And it's not like rocket science, like we were coming up with some sort of grand insight that nobody else saw, but it's reflective of, and it was in the context of AD being outplayed by Jokic on Saturday again in the Nuggets game, and then dominating inside against Chet Holmgren and an undersized Oklahoma City team. And so, what was going to happen on Wednesday? What was going to be the thing that happens on Wednesday? Could AD step up and control the matchup against a guy that he's had a lot of trouble with, but also the style of guy he's had a lot of trouble with? Bigger, more physical, very active. Sabonis is a very good player. I mean, he's sort of Jokic light in a lot of ways.
I did not realize this came up during the Spectrum broadcast. He's leading the league this year in triple doubles.
Oh yeah,
I did not know.
Phenomenal this year.
Yeah, I knew he's been really, really good, and I know he's a really versatile player. I just did not realize that he's leading the league this year in triple doubles.
He's just not a very good defender. Like, that's the biggest issue, is just he's not a rim protector, not a particularly good defensive center. But offensively and as a physical matter, he's a lot. And so, Davis lost that battle, and he lost it on foul trouble, he lost it in efficiency, whatever it might be. He was outplayed. And it's not just a points thing. AD finished with 14 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists. Sabonis ended up with 16 points, nothing crazy there, but 20 rebounds and 12 assists. And he just dominated the game. 4 offensive rebounds for Sabonis. This was a game where the Lakers got 29 from Rui. They got 31 from LeBron. 18.
Rui was one of the few guys on this team who showed up, and LeBron as well. LeBron clearly saw the importance of this game.
Yeah,
I thought LeBron really, really wanted to win this one.
Well, I think that's why when he was asked what flipped the game, he had he had a few things to say. He pointed to substitutions, we make a sub, they make a sub, and he was talking about Malik Monk coming into the game and really controlling things, and the Lakers not getting anything out of their bench. But he pointed specifically to AD in his second foul, and I think there was some purpose behind that. It's like, you can't do that. You just can't. Is it fair? No. I mean, does it reveal weaknesses in our team? It does. But we need to fix the stuff that goes on when Anthony Davis isn't in the game. But AD, you can't afford to flip the game plan, flip the rotation, flip the whatever, because we got to sit you before it's time, and for longer perhaps, because you've got foul issues.
Especially since early foul trouble for AD has been a thing since the All-Star break.
Yep.
And I got to say, as much as And you and I have heaped, I think, very rightly and deservedly, a ton of praise on Anthony Davis this season because for the most part this year, he's been fantastic. He's been available. He has played on both sides of the floor. And it's a point you've raised especially a lot, that if the Lakers had been a top 4 team this year, like AD would be more in the MVP, more in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. And I think all of that is 100% true. Since the All-Star break, AD has been very, very up and down. And this coming at a time, by the way, where LeBron is starting to very outwardly ramp up and starting to very outwardly go into that mode. This is not the time for AD to all of a sudden become inconsistent. Like this is the worst time for it.
Well, and that's, I don't want to make more of it than it was, especially since I wasn't in the locker room watching this on TV. But like, I don't think it's coincidental that LeBron noted that, like in a specific way, both like we got problems, we got to fix it, but also, the game flipped when Anthony Davis got a second foul, and he
said our defense completely changes when he's not in the game,
which is true.
Jackson Hayes is like, I'm right here, man.
Yeah, well, he knows.
He picked up 2 fouls in like 2 seconds.
Right. I mean, and look, I mean, Hayes
had moments.
He's had moments. He's the efforts there. He's not very good. I mean, when it comes down to it, there is a reason Jackson Hayes was available for what he was available for in this offseason. And I think the Lakers have seen that. They have seen the ups and downs. He has been overall better than I would have expected. I think he's had his high moments have been better and more sustained than I was expecting, but you cannot rely on him. He is not a good enough player to be your primary backup center on a team where that center position is so critical for maintaining the integrity of your defense. He's just not good enough. And
I think that's a fair way to put it, just because I think he's done enough good this season that I wouldn't want to reduce him to just he's not very good. But if you're talking about being good enough for the role that is needed, he is
an NBA player, but he's a second and a half center. He's a third center.
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, Lord, I wish I could do that. Like that is a tremendous accomplishment to be able to do that for 10 years in the NBA. And it looks like he'll be able to do it. But this is where Christian Wood, the injury and the overall disappointment is played. Like we all pointed to this as a potential problem for the Lakers. Like say what you will about, they've got a lot of wings. They figure this, that, whatever, but they are real thin at center. And, when they do not have Vanderbilt, and I know you tweeted this out, Andy, again, like they just can't. You can argue in the margins, Max Christie over, Taurean Prince or something like that. And I think this would have been a game for Max, defensively, could have been a decent one for him.
He did play some tonight. Like Reddish did not play at all. I don't know if it was a DNP-CD or injury. I have suspected that Reddish is not all the way back since his return. He has not looked, regardless of what you think of him as a player, he has not looked physically right to me.
Right.
Since he's been
the version of the best version that they've been able to get from him, whether you think that guy's all that great or not.
Right. He does not look he doesn't look all the way back to me. Christie played 11 minutes in this game. He made a couple, he made a 3. I thought he was okay. He also hasn't played much in a while.
Yeah, it's just they are really thin right now. If and so LeBron goes or AD goes off the floor, things collapse. And Sacramento is good. Like I realize they've been struggling. I realize this, but LeBron pointed out after the game, like De'Aaron Fox has kicked their ass for the last, couple seasons. And, so to see Fox put up, what was it, 40? 44, which is even better.
19 of 32 from the field, 4 assists, 2 steals, 4
and for that matter, Malik Monk has kicked their ass for a while.
I mean, I joked about this on Twitter at Cam Brothers. Like, I'm happy for this career resurgence that Malik Monk had, because the time he was with the Lakers, he seems like a really good dude, and I'm happy.
Very popular.
The Lakers, frankly, rebirthed him into too good of a player. Like, it's become, this feel-good story has become actually very inconvenient for the Lakers, because he is kind of kicking their ass on the regular. And he came in immediately in this game and just took it to the Lakers. But we'll talk about this afterwards, man. It's one thing for Malik Monk to outscore your entire bench, even though, make no mistake, that's a problem. But when some of these other guys that were out there for Sacramento were more productive than your bench, this is something we've talked about a lot lately, Brian. It remains a big problem.
Let's get into the bench. Let's get into the bench next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by GameTime. And when I was about 12 years old or so, the Police were on the Synchronicity Tour, and it was a really hot ticket, maybe the toughest in America at the time. And I couldn't get seats. And I just said, at the time, no big deal. Like, I'll just catch the next Police tour. But guess what? They broke up after that tour. And I learned that day, when it comes to a concert you want to see, Carpe Diem. Don't miss out. And that's why I love Game Time. It's a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy shows, and theater near you. And with killer deals on last-minute tickets and the best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets, start getting hyped for the fun. They offer image views of seats, where you're going to be sitting, how the stage is going to look, the lowest price guarantee. They've got job loss protection, event cancellation protection, and you'll always get the best price because of the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time credits you 110% of the difference. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. So get your tickets without the stress using Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
We talked about, Andy, in the first segment, how, Davis, LeBron, Darvin, everybody to a man alluded to how important this game was, and, how damaging it was. They lost it. Quick update. After Wednesday's games, the Warriors won. So they now are back in the 9. The Lakers are the 10. And when you talk about Sacramento, the Lakers are only 2.5 games behind Sacramento, but they are a full 4 games behind in the loss column. Sacramento's got 3 games in hand on the Lakers. So in the loss column, the Lakers are 4 full games behind the Kings, and now have officially lost the tiebreaker to them. So they would have to pass Sacramento in the standings. And again, this with the Kings having 3 more games to play than they do, and 4 fewer losses. So you can basically, short of a collapse from the Kings or an epic 16-2 run over their last 18 games, you can cross the Kings off your list of the teams the Lakers can catch before the season's over.
It gets no easier for the Lakers moving forward. And that is why, in a vacuum, losing to the Kings can be considered inexcusable. But given the context, to lose the way that they did is completely inexcusable.
Yeah. They don't live in a vacuum anymore. We are out of the vacuum. The vacuum now is the context of this, but it's like, teams have blown 19-point leads before. Like, it has happened. Like, the NBA, it's a game of runs and so on and so forth. Like, I was
The
thinking
Lakers erased a 21-point fourth quarter lead against the Clippers.
Right.
What was it, last week?
Like a week ago.
Yeah.
Like, stuff happens, man. But and like the Lakers seemed at the beginning of that second quarter like they kind of stabilized a little bit. It is hard to maintain a 19-point lead against a good team. Like, they're going to come back a little bit. They're going to hit some shots. But you have these sort of multiple collapses because the Lakers, again, the Sacramento goes on that 10-0 run, and it felt like the lead disappeared right away, but it didn't. The Lakers, for 3 or 4 minutes, 3 minutes or so, kind of held on. And then Sacramento goes on this gigantic push again to where this 19-point lead, it's not even like the game is tied at the half. The Lakers from the 5 minute, or roughly the 5 minute mark of the second quarter, they're 5:54 halfway through the second quarter, when Sacramento took the lead, to where the half ended, the Lakers scored 4 points and we're thoroughly outplayed. They were down by 15 at the end of the half. They went from up 19 to down 15. It wasn't even tied. They didn't even give themselves really a chance in that second half. And like, just to get back to what you were talking about before, part of the reason here is the bench for the Lakers continues to not produce enough to keep up.
Spencer Dinwiddie had 8 points in this game. And look, I think he has, to his credit, really tried to fit into what they're doing defensively. Like, we talked about the Oklahoma City game. He played very good defense against SGA. I think he's trying to do the things that are asked of him, but he was also in a lot of ways brought in to be a counting stats guy. And there have not been enough stats to count with Dinwiddie. Taurean Prince began his stint as a bench player playing extremely well. Kind of like AD since the All-Star break, there have been issues. Taurean, just 6 points in this game. He hit 2 threes, but he did not. They needed more from him, just more presence, more production. Like, sometimes the counting stats do matter and do tell you a lot. Like, Jackson Hayes had 1 point, and he's not somebody that is going to create any production that is not basically spoon-fed to him. Like, that's just the type of player that he is. Christie hit a 3, but he's not a scorer. Reddish, if he's healthy, not a scorer. No. Christian Wood is not available. Like, on one hand, moving Rui into the starting lineup, I think was a logical move in the sense that it put your best 5 players out on the floor to start games. And, if Jared Vanderbilt isn't available just for that type of defensive versatility, I think we've kind of reached the place where it's obvious you wouldn't go with any other look than your 5 best players to start games. Mm-hmm. And that starting lineup, for the most part, has been very good, but it has come at an expense of a bench that is, it's one thing for Malik Monk to outscore your entire bench. Like, it's a problem. But you can at least look at it and go, Malik Monk is a professional scorer. But right. When Davion Mitchell gets 3/4 of your entire bench, as far as the guys who played non-garbage time minutes, or, him and Trey Lyles outscore all the guys who played non-garbage time minutes, and it doesn't feel that unusual for what we've seen of late, man, that's a real problem.
It's funny, like with Taurean coming off the bench, he had a 3 in the first that was part of the Lakers building up the lead, and okay, and he had one that kind of went in and out. Like, I get, like, there are a lot of people who want to see Christie play, and I don't have a problem with it. I don't think it's always a straight apples to apples thing. Again, I think this would have been a good one just defensively for him to try to run around with De'Aaron Fox, try to run around with Malik Monk or something, because Taurean clearly couldn't do it. But we have to, as a fan base, get past this idea that Max Christie, who we both like, Andy, is a like an elixir, like some sort of magic solution to a lot of to all their problems. Because he is a guy who is, like you say, is not, he can shoot, and and like you got to use him correctly, and if deployed properly, he can be a positive contributor. But it's not like they've got this super potent weapon on the bench that just is not unleashing. Like there is a limit as to what he can do. But what I mean, it really gets to they have so little margin for error that they need performances off the bench to be more consistent. They need the guys like Dinwiddie who are supposed to be better than this and is supposed to be like, your provider of bench scoring, your sort of Lonnie Walker-esque, plays 18 minutes and gets you, 19 points every few games or something like that. Maybe they just haven't figured out how to use Dinwiddie. I think you're right. I think he's trying to fit in and be part of the team and all that kind of stuff, which is good, but also a reason why late season acquisitions oftentimes don't have much of an impact.
To be fair to Dinwiddie, he is used off ball, I think, a lot more than he has been throughout his career. Like, he's not doing some of the stuff that he's done a lot throughout his career. Like, he typically runs a lot of sets, a lot of pick and roll, stuff like that. He's not doing a ton of it. He is being asked to spot up a lot, which, he can do, but it's not his strength. But this gets in a lot of ways to game planning. And Darvin talked after the game about how he thought they had a really good shoot around pregame film session. They talked about trying to get De'Aaron Fox going to his right, Malik Monk going to his left. Clearly, that didn't work on either count.
No, it did not.
I did not feel like there was, to be honest, much in the way of adjusting anything in this game. And maybe some of that gets thrown off by the limitations on what you can do to adjust when Anthony Davis is in foul trouble and you can't get the best version of him. But the flip side is, don't get into foul trouble. And this has been happening a lot since the All-Star game. Like, as much as, there are a lot of people who will get in line and pay their money to shred whatever Darvin's doing. And we've both said we think he's regressed this year from last year. There is an onus on these other guys to put Darvin in a position where he can play. I was going to say, like, they have to put Darvin in a position to where, if nothing else, he can have the opportunity to adjust and, I guess, fail at it. Like, I don't say this to absolve Darvin, because the team they were not mentally locked in, if nothing else, for this game. And that is a function of Darvin. It is his job to keep guys, locked in for more than the opening 9 minutes of a game.
Well, like, they were clearly came out with the right attitude. And then so it's not fair to say that they didn't show up with the right.
No, but to sustain it, though, that is part of his job. It's not all him.
It right, but that's the thing. It's not all. Go play the game. I think. Look, we can and will do volumes of shows on the problems with Darvin. But while you're doing that, and we'll quit here and we'll carry this into tomorrow. While you're doing that, you do have to set a reasonable standard.
Absolutely.
Aside from, if this was Locked On Heat, I'm sure there are nights we could find things to nitpick about what Spo is doing. But short of that, like, every coach around the league, has these, Budenholzer won a title and had people every night, complaining about what he was doing. Like, the standard can't be perfection. And the standard can't be, if anything that goes wrong. I agree with you. There wasn't not enough active, but what we're seeing here, we'll quit here. I'm sorry. We'll quit is like the lack of margin for error, where the coaching isn't good enough, and it's not helped because the roster isn't good enough. And, from a bench standpoint, a depth standpoint, injuries, whatever. And then when your star isn't good enough, you're really running out of stuff to get you through a game.
I'll I'll quit on what I said earlier. There are two guys on this team tonight that I thought definitively showed up with the right focus and mentality. That was LeBron and that was Rui. I think everybody else, it varies. Some were better than others, but you can't have two guys that you have no doubt about.
Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to hang out, see the show, look at our exasperated faces. This was a frustrating one. So we will be back tomorrow, get you ready for the game, and talk more about what the Lakers have in front of them, because it is daunting, especially after this loss. We'll see everyone tomorrow.